The Snow White press tour continues to worsen for the Walt Disney Company as those like Bob Iger, the Disney CEO, the executives, the board of directors, they are all in a constant phase of panic over this upcoming 2025 feature film, which, by the way, they are still getting this thing out by March of next year, regardless of the looming reshoots that are set to actually begin by this December. There's a lot more to talk about that, by the way, but the star of the film, if you even want to call her a star, Rachel Zegler, is not making things any better for the Walt Disney Company. If anything, it's actually worsening the entire process when it comes to the press tour, the marketing campaign, whatever have you, for Snow White the live action remake. This is Mike Zero. Subscribe if you're new and like this video to see future updates. You can also follow me at Mike01. I thank you also very much for the great and kind support. So one thing about Rachel Zegler, and we've been talking about this for quite a while now, is that she is definitely not a good choice by the Walt Disney Company, because over the past two and a half years, she has been nothing more than a PR disaster based on the interviews that she has been giving for Snow White, based on the marketing campaign. It even got to a point where they actually canceled a series of events that Rachel Zegler was supposed to be involved in that involved some singing sessions live on stage, as well as specific exclusive, on-video interviews with Vanity Fair and among others. Now, what's interesting about this has a lot more to do with her overall stand against the Snow White boycott, alright, the families around the globe that are rejecting this film outright, those that grew up with the 1937 original film by Disney and the Brothers Grimm tale as well. Now, this is where it gets interesting, is that with the Walt Disney Company going through many failures for all of their divisions of the company, one significant development going on now involves more to do with Disney's upcoming Snow White 25 film that is now falling into another phase of chaos behind the scenes. Now, Rachel Zegler, however, recently went on yet another rant toward the public and those that are boycotting the film, where she delivered the following. As a woman, it was my mission to really capture a new version of Snow White as a character. We had to change the source material, and we had to change her values in this film. But what bothers me, and the challenge that I find to be the most stubborn coming from those that grew up with this character, are those that have these loud, inflammatory comments about Snow White's new origin story, and why she's called Snow White this time around. To anyone that has an issue with Disney and the creators changing Snow White's backstory, and how she survived a snowstorm, I think they are the ones that need to be silenced and should really do the world a favor and keep their ugly opinions to themselves. It's not helping you, and it's not helping us. I say this, so what if we change the meaning of Snow White's name? I will never understand why so many families care about something like that, or a change here and there to the character, and how representation is our #1 focus and priority for this film. Those that are against that, I think, are living proof that we face a greater obstacle in the film industry, and I think this is why there are less people attending movie theaters now. They just seem to have issues with representation. It's flat out wrong. It's just wrong. There comes a time when people like that need to know their place and close their mouth over such inflammatory claims toward a character this big in pop culture. When I first got the call that I was accepted for this role, I knew I had to give it my all, and that we had to make changes, massive changes to this character, and why she is called Snow White. It was a necessity. It was a necessary change that many will never understand. Why they don't understand is beyond me. But getting the chance to work with Greta Gerwig and the songs that we created, I think, will be a hit. They will be magical. So guys, before I move on about what Rachel Zegler is talking about, now for those of you that are uninformed, this movie is going to create a massive change, as it turns out, to why she's called Snow White. It turns out she's going to be called that because she survived a snowstorm. She survived a blizzard, if you will, and that's going to be explored in the first act of this movie. So Rachel Zegler confirmed this about a month ago, and she's confirming it yet again here, and it goes to show you how out of touch with reality Disney truly is. The fact that they have to go that far to really go into the source material, they have to flip it upside down, just as they did with many other things out there, many other brands that they own now, unfortunately. They have done this over and over again, and they don't seem to learn from their mistakes. If they really wanted to and truly wanted to learn from their mistakes, Bob Iger would say, call this movie off, let's Batgirl this thing and lock it up in a vault and save whatever image that we have left, and hopefully we'll have a good 2025 year. But that's not the case here. They are doubling down. They are doubling down outright with this movie, and they don't care about the backlash, seemingly. So what's interesting about this further is that we know that there's been a lot of issues between Rachel Zegler and Gal Gadot behind the scenes, in the midst of the upcoming reshoots, the planning stages of the reshoots, whatever have you. There's been a lot of personal issues between the two actresses, and that's also creating a significant snag when it comes to the progress of getting this movie wrapped up completely before that March debut. And we talked about this. There's been a Disney shakeup that if they don't get reshoots fulfilled by next month, they're going to have to delay this thing by either June or July, shifting it to that point. So she goes on to elaborate further. This is a film about empowerment. It's not the same story that you grew up with in 1937 or what the Brothers Grimm created. This is something entirely new, and I have no regrets about that at all. This boycott, or whatever these fans of Disney like to call it, are just being ridiculous and childish. I hope families learn to understand that this film is going to be a very important message to society, and Disney has a very fine message in the movie that was never done before in any other Snow White iteration. People seemingly will never let go of the stigma for engaging with diversity, equity, and inclusion. This is not an agenda by any means, as many claim. It's just showing their own fear and ignorance for our message that we are trying to get across. So, yeah, it's totally fear and ignorance that's the problem among the general public. It makes absolutely no sense. I think that people just want common sense back into the world, back into entertainment, whether it's film or television, video games, books, novels, comics, whatever it may be. People want to get rid of the agenda, the message, the ideology, if you will. And Disney is the #1 studio for doubling down on their efforts with that. That's what they're trying to do yet again. And they have a lot of upcoming live-action remakes, by the way, based on animated classics, that they do plan to do things like race swapping and gender swapping, all of that nonsense. And Bob Iger, this is exactly why I say he is the worst Disney CEO of all time. And whoever replaces him in 2026, I don't believe it's going to be somebody better. Whether it's a he or a she, doesn't matter. I think it's going to be a worse choice than we have ever seen before, because they do now have a new DEI supervisor taking over the Walt Disney Company, overseeing everything, and actually sharpening and doubling down on that actual message. But overall, Rachel Zegler seemingly is having a very bad time dealing with the backlash, dealing with the boycott, how so many families out there want nothing to do with this overall garbage being spewed out by the Walt Disney Company. #1, don't change source material. #2, don't focus on an ideology over art or a story. And #3, learn from your mistakes. That seems like Disney is never going to learn from anything at this point, but I would like to hear what everyone has to say about this below in the comments. And if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel, and I will catch you guys later.